Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, how are you? Hope you are well. I know in many parts of the world there's a second wave, third wave, maybe a fourth wave. I'm not sure now which wave we are on. But I hope you're staying safe and you're healthy and all your loved ones are too. And welcome to my Sunday Reflections. I'm Elsa Marie De Silva and I'm the founder and CEO of the Red Dot Foundation. So, as you know, during COVID 19, I started daily reflections, which then turned to Sunday reflections after the 50th episode. And every Sunday now, I invite a guest to chat with me about what this period has meant to them, how they are coping, and what's going on in their lives. And today, being the International Day of the Girl Child, I am really fortunate to invite my dear friend Thandi Dyani. She's South African but living in Denmark. And she is the head of partnerships for Girls Are Awesome. And today is the right day to talk about Girls Are Awesome. Welcome, Thandi. How are you?
Hi, Elsa. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here, and what an awesome day to be speaking to you.
I know. Tell us what Girls Are Awesome doing today, or
Yeah,
what the campaign is, and then I'll
yeah.
tell you what we are doing.
So, well, Girls Are Awesome. It's a startup actually, and I just came in August. I work with partnerships, and what we do is that we are a community of change makers around the world, a global community of more than 120,000 women and also some males. And what we do is try to create kind of a platform for normalizing women in all segments of life, creating more representation of women in leadership in the media, in tech, in entrepreneurship, everywhere where it's possible and where it's important. Yeah, and we try and work with the idea of real women role models, so we can mirror ourselves in all these different, whether you're black or white or whatever. So we really try and create a platform where people and girls can see themselves in, and try and move some boundaries in that sense. Yeah, so that's Girls Are Awesome. We have this content platform. We also do products, like t-shirts and apparel. We do a lot of collaborations with big corporations and stuff. We also do, we have an impact agency, where we just actually signed off, which is very, very good also for these times of the Me Too movement. We just did a partnership with the American consultancy called Mercer that works with HR. We're going to try and work together on getting more corporations to do D&I strategy and actually do activations around it so they become more accountable. So yeah.
That's great. And role models are so important because we don't have enough of them. If you look at any statistic, women
Yeah.
in politics, women in boards, women in leadership positions, they are absolutely pathetic.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important. And
Yeah.
at Red Dot, we have a campaign that we launched with the Consulate General of Sweden, Mumbai, where we are asking young girls and big girls to send
Yeah.
in their stories of taking on action to break barriers. They can send in any artwork, poems, pictures, videos,
Oh,
and
that's so great.
tell us how they've done it, because one is role models, the other is more examples of action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because unless you know what these girls and women are doing, you're not really inspired. You don't feel that you can take on society, you can break those
Barriers
norms.
and
Talking about that, you have broken many in your own capacity. So one is you've been a radio jockey, or no, not radio jockey. You've been a DJ. So tell us more about this.
yeah, I think it started when I was like, I had traveled a lot when I was really young. I had this friend, a South African friend. He always said like, Tandy loves danger, and I think it took a while, like into my adult life, before I really understood what he meant. But it was very much about putting myself in situations where, I was challenged and I could do something different that maybe wasn't the norm for me or for my age or whatever. But when I was 20, I started DJing. I had a long travel through the Caribbean and I just fell in love with reggae music and stuff. And yeah, and that's when it started. And I feel like it really brought me to some amazing spaces of, teaching other women how to DJ, not being so tech, afraid of technology and stuff. But also just trying to how culture is like the historical backdrop of any country or person, or you always have this music that kind of creates that backdrop with you, and the stories that we tell. So I really find that music is super powerful in understanding other people and portraying their history and their stories. And yeah, but it was also a little bit of a lonely journey because I was the only woman who DJ'd, and it was a very kind of not so much anymore, but very much when I was 20, it was a super male dominated space, which also had its own kind of not very fun stories with it. But yeah, but it's been a super important part of my life, and I still do it once in a while when I have time. Yeah, and I think it also, those kind of funny things you feel like is a hobby, when it's actually something that becomes the center where you draw like different relationships into your new work. And yeah, so it's been a journey.
And today, that exact concept of hobbies turning into work, or drawing from the various facets of your life to have a complete life,
Yeah,
is what is emerging during COVID-19, right? So these are skills that are essential. They are also hobbies. They de-stress you, but they also bring you in contact with amazing people and experiences that you would otherwise not have. So,
definitely,
how was
definitely.
it traveling across the Caribbean?
It was I think it was I'm like you also said in the beginning, I'm half South African, half Danish, and I didn't have the chance to grow up in South Africa because of apartheid. My father, he was in as political asylum in Europe. And I think it was for many mixed kids, it's actually really hard to find that other part of you. And I felt like the Caribbean was kind of a pit stop to my exploration of South Africa and my history in South Africa. So I just fell in love with the Caribbean, and I traveled in Trinidad and Tobago and Cuba and Jamaica. And I just felt like I fit in, because when you grow up in Copenhagen, Denmark, it's very much, when you're a woman of color or a girl of color, you're very much kind of alone with it. It's a very kind of homogenic society. So I needed something else. I needed some space where I could feel like I just fit in, where people just thought I was from there. So yeah, but I picked up a lot of things from the Caribbean, some of the culture, some of the food culture, yeah, and the music culture and stuff.
Talking about women of color, right now there's this global conversation going on, not only about women in color, but also people of color, and people of various shades, so
Yeah.
brown, black, etc. So can you share, because you've been CEO of Impact Hub, now you are head of partnerships for Girls Are Awesome, and you've lived in 2 countries for extended periods, maybe more. What is the conversation around this concept of women in color? What are people trying to do?
I think in South Africa, and I think also in sub-Saharan Africa in general, I saw like a lot of kind of just being quiet and trying to understand the situation from an African perspective. Because in South Africa and many other African countries, it's not like we have, the majority is black, the police force are black, the politicians are black, but we also need to figure out, what does that mean? What does like systemic racism, for example, mean with the old colonial, history and apartheid history and stuff like that. So I think it took a while before, and we are still working on it even. I think it just takes a while because it's not so prevalent. It's not in your face like it is in the States, for example. And in Denmark, it's been, or the Nordics, I think, as well. We're not even there where we have a conversation about racism, about the different experiences that people of color have in the Nordics, for example. I mean, even with the Me Too movement, it's 2 years since we had the first kind of wave of Me Too, and it didn't really amount to much. now suddenly we have a second wave, and it's like you see politicians going off, you see, head of media, like central media roles, kind of, there's been a lot of stuff going on, but I think we still need to adapt those conversations to include race as well. And it's yeah, we have this concept in Denmark called hygge, which is like this cozy feeling of, let's not disturb the conversation, with serious conversation, because now we just have hygge, we're sitting around the dinner table and all that stuff. And I think it kind of prevents real conversations on how people are experiences, people's experiences. But there's also a lot of grassroots movement, which I find really fascinating. We have some new kind of associations that try and work with, racism and putting people of color more in the center of, of where you can speak and where you can be listened to. And also before I started in Girls Are Awesome, they also tried to do like a series of voices of people of color who could, talk about their experiences as Danish people with, minority Danish people, and how they've seen the educational system, the labor market, having children and all that stuff, how it affects your life and your possibilities as a person of color. So there are small things happening, but the great conversation, it still needs to find its way to the surface.
Yesterday was Mental Health Day. And, this concept of, how do you pronounce it? Hygge.
Yeah, Hygge. Yeah.
So I heard about it several years ago and I was fascinated. I think I even wrote an article about it. Yeah, I should find it and post the link on this chat. But don't you think that even when you expect the entire country to experience this contentment and, happiness, it puts a lot of pressure that if you're not feeling it, that there's something wrong with you. And that also becomes then difficult to have a chat about.
Yeah. And also in that light of mental health, Denmark or the Nordic countries, especially Denmark, I think is actually one of the countries where you find most suicides. And we have a long, dark winter where people were really struggling to, to keep their mental health in a positive state. But definitely, it puts a lot of pressure on, we're the happiest country in the world, because, if you're not the happiest person in the world, it can be super frustrating. And you feel like you don't fit in. But of course, also taking the fact that we do have a lot of nice things in the Nordics, like the welfare system. And I think all those kind of happiness index that definitely also measured, your access to health or to education and all those things as well. But mental health is definitely also, we have a long way to go, I think, globally. Yeah.
Great. This is fascinating. So where were you during COVID-19 at the start
I was, before it was a kind of a pandemic, I was still in Johannesburg working with Impact Up Joburg. I was just traveling home to celebrate my 7-year-old's birthday, and I was supposed to go back again. And then there was all this talk about, what's going on? Is it really a pandemic? And and I kept on, my husband kept telling me, when are you going to book your flight? It's very annoying. I can't plan with whatever you're doing. And I just had this second sense saying to me, I don't know, you have to wait a little bit, So I waited, and the day after I was supposed to leave, that's when the Danish Prime Minister, she closed down Denmark at least, and 12 days later it came to South Africa as well. So I've actually been in Copenhagen ever since, and I remote kind of leaded my team, and it was challenging.
I can imagine. So how did you cope during this time?
I think it was, I coped with the fact that we had, instead of having team meetings, we had check-ins, like real check-ins where we talked a lot about how we were feeling, if we were scared, and all, like sharing our emotions and stuff. And then I was lucky enough that we went into spring and summer here in Denmark, and I planted a little garden for myself. It's about small things that you can do to kind of keep your 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 mental state in a positive kind of corner. But I think it's been tough. It's been really tough, and also trying to explain to your kids why they're home and why is mom and dad home and why is hey, watch a movie while mom has a meeting and stuff. So I think it's been challenging. It really has. Yeah.
So, how does it feel actually transitioning from one job to another during COVID-19? I know several people have done it, and it seems like impossible to me, because when you say, for example, you can't meet your colleagues and your first introduction to them is online, how do you even establish a relationship? I'm just curious.
Yeah. No, I think first of all, it was super sad, and I still feel a little bit sad about it, that I couldn't say goodbye to my team in South Africa, because it was like a Zoom call, like, bye, have a nice life. Not like we're not going to see each other again, but you never know when, and it's not going to be in the same context. But lucky enough, the people I work for now, I knew them from before because we had tried to do some projects together. So yeah, but it's still, I can imagine how hard it must be to meet only, to meet your new colleagues only online, or trying to understand a work culture when you haven't really met yet, and when it's not really the way it used to be, So that's a challenge, definitely. But I think also many of the people I've been talking to, and of course I feel super privileged and fortunate enough to have found a new, something, not just a job, but something that's actually moving some stuff, something with purpose. Yeah, so it's just it's strange. It's strange to change in the middle of a pandemic, but I think honestly, like everybody said, oh yeah, it's really hard to work at home, but we haven't really been working from home. We've been home because of a pandemic, and not, so there's a lot of layers to this that we have to accept, that it's just strange and it's not comfortable all the time.
So, both of us are responsible leaders in the BMW Foundation Herbert Fund Network. And we met we met in Merida in Mexico in December 2019. It seems like ages ago, a different world completely. But we launched something called the Gender Alliance, and we've been very active partners in that. So, for those who don't know, the Gender Alliance is a network of networks, all the German networks, BMW, Bosch Alumni, the Global Diplomacy Lab, which is under the Foreign Office, and the GIZ Learning Academy. And what has been your experience being part of this Gender Alliance?
Well, first of all, meeting all of you in Merida was just such a life altering experience somehow. I remember looking at those kind of different community led workshops, and the only one that was focused on gender was the one you were hosting. And I thought, okay, I didn't know anyone. And I was like, okay, let me just see if I can't find some like-minded spirits there. So I went to it, and I was just blown away by you, and how quickly we came from something that was kind of up in the air. We all want to change something. I was sitting in South Africa doing some stuff with social entrepreneurship and women. I had been kind of, we were doing these collaboration with SAP and the Female Quotients, doing like this equality lounge in Joburg, hosting conversations, in around gender-based violence and the 16 days of activism. And then we kind of took the kind of the perspectives of that and put it into all our work from November last year. Yeah, so it was just like coming home, to be simple about it. And yeah, it's really meant a lot to me to be part not only of the BMW Foundation's network, but also the Gender Alliance. I think it's super inspiring, and it helps me understand the complex, it's such a complex area, but we all work with gender equality in different ways, and we can help each other, pushing the boundaries, moving the needle, and being part of the alliance and doing the communication stuff, and also the summit is just super valuable. Yeah, it really is.
Tell us a little more about this equality lounge that you hosted last year.
Yeah. So we had been talking to SAP about other things. We had been working together with them also on other projects, but we in some meeting we just realized that we, as myself and my counterpart in SAP, we were so passionate about women and helping women around us. So we decided to go together and establish this well, just to back up a little bit, SAP and the Female Quotient, they have these pop-up events where they host an equality lounge, maybe during a concert or at a university or something like that, and they invite in different people to talk about different things related to gender. So the one in Johannesburg was actually the first kind of physical lounge that was there all the time, and we started with on in November last year, and the first day of 16 days of activism, and we had invited Action Aid South Africa, the lady who worked with, she was behind a super amazing action where they closed down the JSE, the stock exchange in Johannesburg, where they kind of did a massive demonstration outside. You know what happens if you take all women out of the economy? It actually has a huge impact on trading and all that stuff. So we had her, and we had UN Women South Africa talking also about the policy work and what those aspects, and then we had us and SAP, and it was basically just it was kind of we wanted to open up these conversations on how hard it can be to be a woman in South Africa. We have, I mean, I think compared also to India, you also have lots of challenges with gender-based violence, but yeah, South Africa is really challenged by this fact that a lot of women get raped, killed. It's horrible. And also in the social, in the entrepreneurship sector, there's not really, when you're your own boss, there's no really help to get if something happens. And we try to just build a platform that was secure, where you could come, you can talk to other people. So yeah, it was really amazing. And we had, until COVID, we had kind of 3 more events just looking at gender in different ways.
You didn't think of taking it online?
We did actually.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So is it open to the public?
Sorry?
Is it open to the public, or is it a closed group only?
No, it was open to the public. And also the live events, we hosted it on SAP. They have this new Purpose Live network platform. So we had all the conversations there after lockdown and stuff. So yeah, it was definitely open for everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful. There was something that I wanted to ask you, and now momentarily I've forgotten about it. But but did you find more? Was it only women in the audience, or did you also manage to get men to attend these sessions? Because as you know, during our Gender Alliance Summit, we had a specific session engaging men, and the idea is to include a lot of men in this conversation, because it's about gender. It's not about women. It's about gender. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So we did manage actually to get men involved in the conversation. And I think it also, the men who actually attended these conversations, their perception on exactly what you say, it's not a woman's thing, it's a gender thing. And we all have a role to play in it. I think we actually moved some boundaries on that. But I think it's super hard, because then it's a balance. We would find some women who felt more, I would like this to be a women's only event. And I was very much, but if we really want to move the needle, we need men on track with this. So I think it's always a constant balance of, engaging men, but also finding that sweet spot where women also feel they can be open with whatever it is they're talking about.
Looking forward, now that COVID-19 has, upset our world and created this mess, and a lot of companies have actually decided that people are going to work from home, And many companies are rethinking their strategy of housing themselves in huge corporate parks. Do you think, because you were CEO of Lab, Impact Lab, right?
Hub, yeah, hub.
Impact Hub.
Yeah.
Um, these co-working spaces are going to be going to be more popular in the future, or do you think that it's going to go back to normal?
I think there's I think there's a lot of good intentions, and I think actually that co-working is gonna be the new way of working, that where you can kind of check in and out as you, and not having the big kind of financial, with rent and stuff, that you actually just have a few tables you can share with your employees. But unfortunately, also like in Impact Hub Joburg, we had to close down because, and I can see that globally also, the co-working sector is really hard hit by not having any customers, basically, and from also now that we're going into second wave and stuff, all the regulations around how many people you can be and stuff. I think it's a very, it's challenging for people to, or for these kind of organizations to stay alive until we reach a point where corporations definitely would, I'm sure they would love to have more, office spaces like co-working spaces. And I think also in terms of how we work, but also understanding collaboration, for example, I think COVID has really opened a lot of eyes to see, okay, if we have to get anywhere, we have to be much more collaborative in the way we do things in projects and whatever. And a co-working space is also very much a place where we work in that way, much more collaborative and open, and co-creating stuff. But I just hope that there's a lot of spaces open still in 2021, or whenever we get back to normal.
Collaboration. I know we had one whole session on collaboration some time back, and or Krishnan, right? So his TEDx talk was on communities of practice, and he
Yeah.
says it's just a fancy word for collaboration. What, in your view, since you're head of partnerships, what in your view makes for a good collaboration, and why is it necessary?
Yeah, well, I think it's necessary because whatever we are trying to solve out there, whatever product we have, it's not just a straight line or a simple perception of things. We need different. It's like in the diversity, what we fight for, gender diversity. It's we need more stakeholders involved to understand fully what it is we're trying to do and to solve what it is we are solutions trying to solve. So having a multiple stakeholder kind of project or ways of working, I think it's the only way forward, to be honest. Yeah, and the way that I see that corporations are also getting so much more, open to collaboration, because they can see they lack knowledge in certain areas, and they lack, and if they want to stay relevant, especially with the young generations, they need kind of stakeholders who understand them, and they need those kind of, innovative ways that, for example, startups are working. We had a really nice collaboration in South Africa between, in the hydrogen sector, trying to do these green transitions, and we had huge corporations from the mining sector and from the oil industry working together with small startups to kind of get that kind of innovative way of, agile working and stuff. So I see it has a huge potential, and people who can't trust, their surroundings enough to be working with them, they're the ones who are going to be left behind ultimately. Elsa, I think you froze, or maybe I froze, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I lost connection over there. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, now I can hear you. Hello. I don't know
Great.
when I lost you. Suddenly I realized, oh, it's kind of quiet.
Yeah. The best thing is that if you lose me, then you still keep on talking.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily realize. Anyway, so yeah, so this collaboration and partnerships, what are you looking for? What kind of partnerships are you looking for on behalf of Girls Are Awesome?
So, I mean, we both work. For example, we have a partnership with Adidas Originals, and we do a product line that where we try and do not only products where we focus on women and girls, but we also try and do these role model shoots, for example, where we voice these different women. Instead of having models, we have real women, and women of color. We have women with, niqabs. We have, so we try and be very kind of holistic when we look at stuff that we do. And like I also said, we are trying to do, or we just did a partnership with Mercer, that does HR, and we want to move more into also working with big corporation, how they can start thinking more about D&I in, not only having a strategy and then they put the PDF in the drawer and nobody really cares about it, but something where we activate employees and really create this sense of that ownership over the project and how it can filter down through the organizations and stuff. So we work in any way we want, basically, as long as we can get people on board with our partnership principles, is that we have diverse teams that works on a project, that we use real role models and create real impact, that is not just something we say, but something we actually do. So yeah, it can be anything.
Amazing. And that must be so exciting. I personally love when it's a clean slate and there's no restrictions,
Yeah,
in terms of guidelines, because you
yeah,
can be absolutely creative.
yeah,
I
yeah.
already
I
have so
love.
many ideas running through my mind. I have to rein that in.
Well, we can talk, Elsa. I'm sure we have something we can do together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
What advice? I think I would say to myself that it's super okay to be who you are. And at some point your tribe will find you, or you will find your tribe. Even though you feel a little bit alone and not anybody to mirror yourself in, your tribe will find you and you're cool. I think that I would say that to my 16-year-old self.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you are part of my tribe
Oh,
and we are having a lot of fun together. So let's keep pushing those boundaries. And
yes.
again, to all the girls out there, you can be anyone who you choose to be. There are lots of role models. Just check my website for a change. I've featured so many women around the world doing diverse things. And it's always very energizing for me, to meet with people like you, Thandi, hear about your story, your journey. It's never linear. It's always,
Yeah.
with twists and turns and curves, and fascinating completely. So thank you for sharing your Sunday afternoon, my Sunday evening with me.
Thank you so
And
much, Elsa.
yeah, I look forward to more collaboration with you.
Definitely.
Thank you.